Okay, welcome back. Overall, the story of Willie Mae is told as if she was poor and caught up in the culture of poverty. The irony is, she wasn't poor. In fact, she was very wealthy, and yet still caught up in this shiftless lifestyle. In fact, Willie Mae was a famous person I'm sure most of you have heard of. So, who is this person? The story you read is from the official biography of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who, together with her husband, President John F. Kennedy, were considered the closest thing to American royalty in the early 1960s. She was the epitome of taste, style, elegance, and good breeding, and she defined fashion while her husband was president. Most students are quite surprised when I reveal who it is. So if you're in that category, ask yourself, why are you so surprised? Now that you know who it is, does that change your impression of her story? And in what ways? What this case study illustrates is how we have set poor people up for failure simply because of the way we think about them, label them, and stereotype them in light of the culture of poverty ideology. The fact that this case study was about a wealthy person who was widely respected just highlights how absurd our stereotypes of the poor are when the wealthy who engage in the same exact behavior are seen as above reproach. And yet, obviously, Jackie Kennedy's shiftless and lazy behavior did not cause her to be poor. That's because she had unequally good opportunities to live a wealthy life. So the culture of poverty idea is wrong and misleading. Again, it's an ideology. What causes wealth and poverty is not an individual's personal characteristics, but primarily the opportunities they are given. And yet the vast majority of people in the US accept all of the premises of this ideology as if they were factual or real. So we have a double standard for judging people's behavior, such that we tend to expect the best from the wealthy and the worst from the poor. And when we do this, we wipe our hands of any sense of responsibility for taking serious steps to seriously address poverty and the unequal opportunities that created in the first place. So, now let's flesh out the structural perspective. Again, this view tells us that poverty is caused and perpetuated by unequal opportunities, but it's also reinforced by a culture of shiftlessness. Think back to the circular relationship between structure and culture that we saw before. Basically, the culture of shiftlessness contributes to the perpetuation of poverty, but it does not cause poverty. All right? This fits into that circular relationship. You can think of this shiftlessness as a way of coping with failure, and that can reinforce and perpetuate one's poverty. Finally, we always have to keep in mind the wealthy are just as likely to be shiftless as any other class of people. Taking this a step further, research indicates that poverty exacts a psychological toll on people. The culture of poverty ideology is intimately tied to our belief in meritocracy and the achievement ideology. These are best represented by the, quote, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps stories that we like to tell. The idea that if you work hard enough, you will succeed. In a world in which this is what people economic and educational failure are internalized by the poor as being the result of personal deficiencies rather than a result of social structure. In this way, inequality is legitimated. In his classic study of poor high school students, the author of the book Ain't No Makin' It, Leveled Aspirations in a Low-Income Neighborhood says that, quote, in contemporary America, the educational system, by sorting students according to meritocratic criteria, plays a crucial role in the legitimation of inequality. Because the school deals in the currency of academic credentials, its role in the reproduction of inequality is obscured. Students believe that they succeed or fail in school on the basis of merit. By internalizing the blame for failure, students lose their self-esteem and then accept their eventual placement in low-status jobs as the natural outcome of their own shortcomings. If individuals are convinced that they are responsible for their low position in society, then criticism of the social order by subordinate classes is deflected, and poverty is perpetuated, unscrutinized, and unchallenged. End quote. So, one of the most useful questions you can learn in sociology is to ask, in whose interest is it that we believe this? This is perhaps the classical Marxian question. In whose interest is it that we have this culture of poverty idea? This question is very useful in helping us expose and understand ideologies.